Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name's Maddie, and today I'm going to be going through my review of a arc that I just received about a month ago from Net Galley. It is for the book The Hand of the Sun King by J.T. Greathouse. So this might be a quick video because I just wanted to go through a few of my thoughts. So I just wanted to go through a quick review of the book. It is an arc that is written by J.T. Greathouse. I received it about a month and a half ago on Net Galley, and I was really excited about it. It is a fantasy book about this character Elder who basically is introduced to two different cultures. He's kind of his father is Siamese, who is like a very large kind of culture, kind of empire that has taken over a majority of the landmass that they live on. And then there is also his mother's side, which is Nayun. And nannies are very much down to earth. They're considered witches in that their magic, that their power is kind of more wild, is kind of more unstable. They believe in these other gods that kind of rule over the earth. Whereas the Siamese only really believe in the Emperor. And the Emperor is kind of in charge of everyone through his voices, which are people that can cast this magic that the Emperor can see through their eyes. And then there's also the hands of the Emperor, who also can cast magic and are kind of like the people in charge of his armies and of the towns that they preside in. Elder kind of gets both sides of that because his family is both. However, his mother has to be subjugated because of the culture of the Siamese, which is that the men of the family are the ones that are the breadwinners. They're the ones that hold court or hold council, and the women of the family need to kind of be separated. They need to kind of be out of sight. They're the ones that cook and that clean the houses and that invite guests over whenever there's guests coming over to the house. So it's a very traditional way of living in the Siamese culture. And Alder kind of grows up with that culture, although his grandmother also kind of lives at the house that he lives in, and she's not supposed to live there because she's kind of rebel. She is a witch. She is a Nianese witch, which have been kind of banned, and actually to the point where if any Siamese army or any Siamese officials were to have known that she lives there, they would have taken her and killed her. They're the Nian magic has been kind of snuffed out. There are still people that are witches, and they kind of are this rebel force that is out in the world that is basically trying to fight the Siamese Empire to try and get back their lives, get back control of their own island and their own culture, and not let the Siamese take it over. Because the goal of the Emperor is to basically take all the magic that exists in the world and make it his own. He kind of uses his voice and his hands to be able to learn of other magic that exists in other cultures. And it seems as though there are several cultures that exist in this world, and they each have their own form of magic, their own way of binding that magic to make sure that it's not too powerful. And it also has to do with pacts between them and the gods that they worship. The main story is about how Elder has he really wants power. He discovers this power at a very young age through his grandmother, but then she kind of takes that away from him by binding his magic, his witch magic, by putting these cuts along his the seams of his hand, and they're called witch marks. And it kind of binds that magic so that he can still do it, but it's not nearly as powerful as what he kind of tasted when he was really young. And ever since then, he kind of realizes that he really wants to move up in the ranks of the Siamese Empire in order to be able to obtain magic that he has not been able to get through his grandmother. And so he does these, they go into very big detail about the different tests that he has to go through in order to become an official within the Empire, and how the better you score on this test that is only given every 3 or 4 years, the higher up you can be in rank within the Empire. And obviously the highest ranks being the hand and the voice of the Emperor. It kind of starts off immediately by saying that the town that he lives in has not had a official to officiate the exam for ever. This is actually the first time that it's ever been done. So it's a very big deal that he is a part of this first time officiated exam, and he does amazingly. This is in the beginning of the book, so it's not really spoiling too much, but he does amazing. He is able to become a hand. He rises up to that point, And the whole story is basically about him trying to like hide his other side of him, that like he kind of has to fight people and to kind of show that he is part of the like Nian descent, but that it's not going to affect how he makes decisions as being the hand of the emperor, and that like through his training he has to kind of prove himself constantly and to kind of show that yes, he has that culture, but it doesn't really affect, you know, his standing in the government, and, you know, his standing in, you know, his status and like how he can make decisions. And it's kind of sad to like see that he really struggles with that constantly, and that he has to like not only prove to everyone that he is trustworthy, but also to kind of lie a lot about the fact that he has the witch marks on his hand, that he's been able to like kind of hide that from the empire for quite a long time. And that he has to lie about like his background, that he has this magic that he can't show anyone because they have like this ripple effect whenever magic is done, and that the other hands and voices and even other people that just cast magic in general would get this feel of this magic that they do not have. Yeah, the whole story is just about him like kind of lying about it, and to also try and find magic that exists outside in the world. Like he wants to have power. And it kind of seems selfish at first, because he's just like, all he really wants is power, to be as powerful as he imagined he could have been if he wasn't bound by his grandmother, but also by the emperor, because when you become a hand or a voice, they kind of bind you as well, and that you have this magic available to you, but it's much more limited than it could have been. And so his goal is to like try and find as much power as possible, and he goes to several different cities, several different cultures that he's experiencing, and kind of realize that there are different types of magic, different types of gods and goddesses that kind of have given this magic to the people. And he just is really curious to find out what this magic is and how close it is to not being bound, because that's his biggest irritant about all of this, is that no matter what magic he finds, it's bound, it's limited, and that there is no, he can't find magic that is as boundless as when he had first experienced it when he was a kid. So like it's a frustration of his to be able to like have to go through all these moments, but to also pretend as though he's very thankful for what he is experiencing and what he's learning. That part of the story was actually really interesting. I loved the way that the magic mechanics are in this world, and that there are several different types of magic, but that they all kind of like are the same, that there is this pattern of the worlds that they all kind of flow into. And so even though they are different, and even though there's like different stories and different meanings behind the magic, and behind the source of this magic, they all kind of are one and the same in a sense. And he kind of experiences this throughout the story. But there were a few things that I didn't really enjoy too much about the story. First off, I thought that the pacing, which is the biggest problem that I had, was a little strange. There were several instances where it would go from one chapter to another, and it would skip like a couple months or even a couple years in some cases. Like I believe between chapters 15 and 16, it skipped like 2.5 years. I can't remember exactly if those were the chapters, but there would be instances of like very big gaps in the story, and they would kind of like brush over it. Like they would describe like, okay, this happened during that time, but that's not important. The moment that I skipped to is the important part. And I understand that. I understand that like you don't want to bog down a story too much by just like these minor details that don't really matter. That would just extend the book for just extending the book purposes. But I actually felt that some of those skips were really important, and that I wish that they could have developed those moments in time more. Like for instance, there was a moment where he had become a hand, and he was kind of learning this magic, and he was in this estate, and he was kind of like becoming friends with this one person. I believe his name was Oriel, and he was becoming friends with him, and he was like learning this magic, but he was also like becoming friends with this person, which he hadn't really experienced before. And I kind of wish that they went a little bit more in detail with that, just because I felt like the connection between Elder and Oriel wasn't as strong as it could have been. Like you could tell that they were close, but it didn't really like have the same impact as it could have had if they had written a few more scenes with them, or just a few more interactions with them to really show how close they were, and to show why Oriel is so significant to Elder. Similar later on in the story, we actually have our first love interest between Elder and an Anzabat individual when he went to that town. I felt like I could see that there was an attraction between them, and and it kind of describes throughout the chapters after that like he did have an attraction, that they did have something other than just, being close between each other. But you don't really get any of that. Like you get some scenes where they're like dancing and they're and they're like obviously attracted to each other. But for the most part, that's all you really get, is you get these like hints of what is happening between them, but he doesn't like explicitly tell you what's happening, and it kind of feels like there's something missing because of that. So I just felt like some of the gaps, some of the like missing links, although not necessary, I felt like they could have made the book a lot better and a lot more full, because I felt like it was very hollow in some of those spots because of just this like gap in detail that could have been there. I also wish that they went into a little bit more detail about the magic system. Like, yes, they talk a lot about it and about like the different forms of magic and stuff, but I feel like he mentions a lot about the gods and a lot about like how they were able to give power to their citizens, and they kind of briefly mentioned that throughout the story, and more with the Anzabat, with the like water and wind magic that was with those people. I feel like the author could have had a chapter for like whenever Alder was in these towns, where he went through like the story of those gods and a story of the people, and like I feel like the citizens would have been able to, like whoever Alder was talking to at the time could have told him this story, because it seems like it was basic knowledge. It is very briefly mentioned, and it a bit more in Anzabat, but I just feel like it could have, like, the lore behind these gods and the magic could have been described a bit more. Even though this is the first book, and I believe it's going to be a series, or at least it's going to be 2 books. I know it's just the first book, but it could have made me more interested in this, you know, culture and in these different magic systems if they had gone a little bit more detail with them. But regardless of those issues, and there were a few other like minor things throughout the story that I thought was a little strange, I actually really enjoyed. Like I said, I enjoyed the magic system. I enjoyed how the plot went. Like, it was a little boring in the beginning because it was very much focusing just on him and the exam, like him studying for the exam, him taking the exam. Like, it was a bit too much detail for that. Like, I thought I was kind of bored of it for like the first third of the book, maybe even the first half of the book. But then once he started traveling around as the Hand, and he started to experience these cultures, and you started to see like where he's going with his plans, like what his goal is as a Hand, as just himself trying to find the power. That's when the story kind of started to pick up a little bit. And at the very end of the story, like the last couple chapters, that's when it really did hook me. And it's kind of unfortunate that it took that long to be able to get me interested in the story, but I'm glad that it was able to hook me in the end, because if it hadn't, I probably wouldn't have wanted to ever read any more of the books in the series. But because it was able to end on a cliffhanger, like it wasn't like a super big cliffhanger, but it was enough to like get me interested in what would be next in the series, what would be next in the story. I'm glad that the author was able to at least do that much. Although, again, I wish that the beginning wasn't as slow as it was. Regardless of all of that, I ended up giving the book 3 out of 5 stars. It was average. It was something that I probably won't want to read again, and I probably won't want to buy the book like myself, like in physical copy. But I still recommend it. I still think that it was really well written, and it did go into detail in a lot of ways. I just personally wish that it had gone more in detail with the plot. But that's just the kind of reader that I am, is I really enjoy like the lore and the stories behind magic and behind societies with this kind of a story. And I just feel like it didn't do that justice. But I still felt like the story was very strong, and I really enjoyed everything that I had read. I very much recommend it if you are interested in not just fantasy, but into like different cultures and how they react with each other. How an empire can subjugate other cultures and other towns. And I thought that it was really well written. I could tell that the author did a lot of research on these different cultures, and like kind of just figuring out like ways to make it so that it is really unique, but is also very sensitive to like different cultures. I'm not actually sure if some of these cultures actually exist or not. I haven't really looked too much into that. But regardless of whether they do or don't, I feel like the author really did a good job in making sure that he is sensitive to these cultures, and that he's able to kind of give them the light that they deserve. But yeah, so I definitely recommend the story. It comes out on August 5th, so by the time you watch this video, it would have already come out. I recommend getting it. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed my review. I hope that I was able to give you a little bit of insight into the story without giving too much detail about it. Let me know in the comments if you buy the book or if you're interested in it. And if you've also read the story, please let me know what your thoughts were. I'd love to kind of get input on other people's points of views, because I feel like even though I felt strongly about the things I talked about, I can see how other people would enjoy the things that I didn't like, or in the inverse of it, that they wouldn't like the things that I thought that were interesting. So I would love to see what your insights are on the story. So please like this video if you haven't already. Please subscribe to my channel, and if you look forward to more reviews from me, please let me know in the comments, and also subscribe to my channel if you would like to see more of these book reviews. Thank you so much and have a good day. Bye.